Hey guys, for my 100th video I decided to do a postmortem instead, which is pretty much just looking back at past accomplishments, what I could have done differently during my tutorial series, and I realize now that I posted on Reddit and people brought up all the stuff that I could have done a lot of things different. So hopefully for the next 100 tutorials that I make, they'll be a lot better and I can get more suggestions on it for my next Reddit post that I make. Announcing my new tutorials. But hopefully, yeah, I can improve on it in the future. But I'm pretty accomplished right now because I set a goal at the beginning of the new year to make 100 tutorials and get 1,000 subscribers and whatnot for this whole year, and I've accomplished that pretty much within 3 months. I almost hit my last goal of getting 100,000 video views, and that'll probably be accomplished in the next 10 days depending on how many more subscribers I get and how many more people will be watching my videos. But for now, most of my goals have been met, so it's pretty much improving from now on what people are suggesting, because there's a lot to look back on, and I realized that I did a lot of things wrong and my code is very sloppy, and I should have fixed it and made it look a lot more professional for people, because I think people don't take me too seriously when my code is written wrong or it's very sloppy and whatnot. So I'm going to be improving not only myself but the way that I code for the future, and hopefully I can get more suggestions on my code on how to do stuff a lot better, because I'm always looking to improve myself and I can't do that unless people tell me flat out that my code is messed up and whatnot. So throughout my 100 tutorials I didn't get many people telling me that I was wrong, how I was coding. There were a few people that brought it up, but I kind of just blew them off thinking, it's free code. People can figure it out and recode it themselves how they want, but that's kind of selfish to me. I know I'm putting a lot of time and effort, but I should be teaching people the right way instead of the wrong way on how to do stuff. So hopefully I can reteach my methods for the future. We'll look back at previous tutorials that I've done and we'll code it the correct way and the correct format so people can also improve their skills, so I'm not dragging them down the wrong path that I was coding. So we can go and look at the Reddit article really quick. The top comment was showing me my original code and how to improve it better. Now you can see here, now that I'm looking back at it, that the code was sloppy and very spread out, very horrible looking. This is not the way that people should be coding, and I know that. But for me, I am totally fine with this back when I was coding that, but now that I've done coding for a while, I realize that this is horrible looking code and it's very hard to follow, and people don't want to scroll down this far to see all the code. So I guess when I was coding, the thing was going through my mind is when it compiles, it'll all be all the spaces will be fixed and stuff. It doesn't matter. But when people are trying to learn this code, they want stuff that's easy, not only easy to follow, because I could explain this to them in every step, but still people still be confused by the layout and format of it. And I should have listened to people when they told me that I should be fixing my code. I guess since I'm the only one working on my games pretty much for the coding portion, I just memorize where everything is, and I don't really care what other people, how other people perceive my code and that they can fix it. But I should really be coding correctly in order to help people out. So here's a fixed version of this same piece of code that someone else did, and it's a lot cleaner, a lot less spaces. I can say that pastebin, sometimes when you paste in code it spreads everything out, and I guess I'm just sometimes lazy and don't want to fix all the spaces, so I just leave it how it is. So that's another thing that caused it, but here you can see that their code is nicely laid out. It's indented for each piece, and so I'm going to try following this kind of format when I start programming my new stuff. So I'm not going to try releasing code that looks horrible. So that's one thing I'm definitely going to be improving on, and by using less code in the correct code. I did not know that you could use a while true statement to do forever looping. I just thought a for statement that's always being called would work just fine, or that's how you're supposed to do it. So that's something new that I learned right there, and that's going to help me out a lot in the future for looping through and doing different stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of people pretty much were just talking about how ugly my code is and how much I can improve on it, and that's pretty much the main thing that I'm trying to shoot for in the future. I've only worked with C# and JavaScript, so I haven't had too much experience with too much coding, so I'm not particularly aware of the formatting. I kind of know about the indentation and stuff, but I'm going to have to improve on that a lot more in the future, so I'm definitely going to be looking to do that. So we'll just go through and look at some of my tutorials as I went on. Just get them all loaded up here. And now from the beginning of my tutorial for the MMO style camera movement, I didn't really cover anything. I showed you how to implement all that. I didn't go over too much of the code or anything because I was still a new programmer at the time and fully didn't understand all the code myself. Because a lot of this stuff I research online and try figuring out specific ways of doing certain things, and even I don't understand the code, but I can still understand the basics of how to get it to function, but whatnot. Because from my experience, like, you know how a car works, you know what parts of the car that you need, but you don't know how every part works together to get it to run and work effectively. So that's kind of how I am with coding. I understand all the pieces, but I don't fully grasp the concept of each piece. So in the beginning, yeah, I went through basic stuff. I know tutorial 4 pause menu, it wasn't a menu, it was just how to pause your game. A lot of people complained about that. But yeah, I pretty much followed the basic format of trying to separate my code into little pieces of code. I know a lot of people do tutorials based on part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and I don't specifically like that because I like people to be able to scroll through my tutorials, find a piece of code they're looking for, and implement it into their game without having to follow the other tutorials. Now for my newer tutorials like the Dota style game and different stuff like that for getting the towers and stuff to work, there's a lot of stuff that I could have done differently with that, because for some of the stuff you had to go back and use other pieces of code to get it to work correctly, and that's definitely something I want to improve on in the future. So I kind of want to get more tutorials done and make sure that they work correctly before I start releasing it to the public, because for stuff like the combat system, for example, that was using 2 trigger boxes, or excuse me, one trigger box, or maybe 2. I think there was one for the AI and one for the player. But yeah, you shouldn't be using trigger boxes unless you're firing something. Like if you're firing a box that's like a bullet or something, you should probably use a trigger for that. If it's sending off in a certain direction for a set amount of time and not an instant like bullet fire, maybe like a slower bullet, you might want to use a trigger box style technique. But what I learned is that you should be using raycast instead for certain combat mechanics like attacking. And there's still a couple more things I can learn with raycast, how to do like a frontal raycast at an angle in order to tell what you hit. So there's a lot of things that I can improve on and that I should be improving on in the future for that type of stuff. We could also go, back to the Dota for the AI towers and such. A lot of the code in there was pretty sloppy on how I set it up. I should be using more of an array for setting up the different nodes for the tower and whatnot, and cycle through the different nodes in order to tell where you're going, because there's a lot of sloppy code in there as well. That's not proper AI, how an AI should function with the different statements. So I'm probably going to be trying to improve how AI is set up in the future with different states. I shouldn't have been using all those different if-else-if statements, how I did have them set up. Oh, another thing we want to go look back at. Um, in the beginning, when I was using variables, I told everyone that we should be using static variables to transfer variables across from one script to another. So if an enemy is attacking, use a static variable to be able to call a certain script and a certain variable to change the variable, when you should be using a basic, I think it's a basic piece of code to be able to call that object and call that variable without using a static object. Static objects should not be used in that way. So at least I'm learning a lot of stuff. Hopefully other people are also learning. I can also go back to the beginning of the networking basics. I didn't know too much about networking or how to set it up. I just followed other written tutorials and video tutorials to try getting something that works for me. And in the end, it functioned, but it didn't function completely properly. You can spawn into the game, but you couldn't control your own character or anything. And I wasn't using proper like network is mine style code, which assigns different stuff, like make sure that the player is yours or the camera is yours when it's instantiated. And I wasn't using I believe I wasn't using network instantiate. I was just using regular. But as time went on, I made the FPS networking code, and that seems to function a lot better. So people who thought it was hard to follow or it didn't work correctly, you can just follow the FPS tutorial and it'll do everything correctly in that order. And there's a lot more extra features to this on how to set it up, instantiate objects like players, and give them each their own networking where they can control their own character and shoot each other and whatnot, and have their own variables set up for that, and different rooms and different stuff like that. So hopefully in the future there's a lot more improvements that I can make following these tutorials. I'm glad people gave me a lot more suggestions and feedback how stuff should be done, and I knew I was doing stuff the wrong way. So hopefully, yeah, in the future I can get more high quality tutorials out there. So for my next 100 video tutorials, hopefully I can cover the proper way to do stuff, and hopefully a lot more people will be interested in the tutorials themselves. So yeah, just stay tuned for more tutorials. I'll try getting them out soon. I'm going to be planning them out a lot better, how I'm going to be setting stuff up. A lot of people have given me a lot of good suggestions for stuff, so we're going to be going through everything and completing our games, and hopefully it'll help you guys out a lot more like it's been helping me out. Over the time, you guys have been pushing me to learn different stuff, so I've been pushing myself to learn a lot more coding. So in the end, I'm improving my skills, and that way I can help you guys out a lot more. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the tutorials. Sorry that I couldn't explain a lot of the tutorials fully how they should be explained, and that the code was kind of messed up. So there's a lot more improvements for the future. There's still the whole year ahead of me to improve on that, and hopefully I can set some new goals, and we can follow the tutorials together and learn together, and we can yeah, make great games and more advanced style games and just all of that stuff. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the tutorials. Please leave your comments, suggestions for any way I can improve in the future, and let me know how that goes. So yep, thanks for watching, guys.